we're at the car show at Eastern. I brought my 1960 Corvette down. The car has been a frame-off restoration. Because the car was a kind of a total when I got it, it doesn't have the original engine, doesn't have the original transmission. It's got a ZZ4 crate motor with about 400 horsepower, and it's got a TH400 transmission, Eaton positive traction. I also made it a little bit safer by putting disc brakes on the front and oversized drum brakes on the back. It's got American Racing mag wheels to make it look classic. And I think one of the points I'm going to point out is this 76 ball on the back, which most people say looks tacky. A good friend of my son, whose father died, worked for Union 76 for his whole life. And after he died, his son found a bunch of these balls in his drawer and asked me if I would put one on the car. So I put one on the car in the memory of my friend's father. Other things on the car, it has the Alnock interior. It has, most of the thing I did restoration on it. It looks original, but with the new engine, new transmission, and new differential, it just is a little bit more reliable. I did everything except the paint on it myself. So, and most of the parts I had restored. I had the chrome re-chromed. A lot of the stuff on the car that looks like chrome is actually stainless steel. And that I just buffed out and buffed the scratches out of it and made it shiny again. Other than that, pretty much everything on the car has been replaced. It's got all new bushings, it's got new links in the front, it's got new tie rod ends, it's got new springs front and back, it's got new shock absorbers all the way around. It's got every bearing in the car and every seal in the car has been replaced. Actually, I found it at a garage sale here in Las Vegas, and I have a 61, and one of the guys I work with at work said he saw one at a garage sale. And I said, well, where? Because it was Monday morning and he'd seen the garage sale on Saturday. And he said, I'm not sure, but I can tell you where the neighborhood was. So I went to the neighborhood that night after work and I knocked on doors until I found the car. And then I made the guy an offer he couldn't refuse and bought the car, brought it home, and immediately tore it apart and started rebuilding it. So it looks like it's back in good enough shape to drive now. Well, my plans right now, I'm working on a 1958 MG that I've had since 1965. So that's my link to bachelorhood. I told my wife if I ever want to be single again, we've been married 50 years, but if I ever want to be single again, I can go back to that car and I can drive that car. I've also got a 1961 Corvette that's a project car at this point in time, and that one I want to take back to all original. So it's going to keep me busy until the day I die. Actually, this was the first car I ever did a frame-off restoration on, which is why it took me about 4 years to do it, because it was 1 step forward, 3 steps back, 1 step forward. I did a lot of talking to people like Jim and other people in Corvette clubs. I learned how to do the car restoration, but all my life I liked cars, but I thought when I retired what I wanted to do is I wanted to do restoring of cars. And so when I retired, this was my first project, and like I said, I bought it at a garage sale and took it home, took it apart, and took the body off of it, and just started from ground up and rebuilt it.
Pretty cool. Oh, now what do you have for carburation?
This has got 2 Edelbrock 450 CFM manual choke carburetors on an Edelbrock manifold. It has a roller tappet cam in it so it can handle the additional fuel. And the engine puts out, I would say, around 400 horsepower with 2 4-barrels on it. And the nice thing about it's got about 405 foot-pounds of torque, so it's got a lot of grunt. It's got a lot of, horsepower is bragging numbers. Torque is what does the work, and this thing's got enough to do the work. I drive it to car shows. I drive it to our NCRS. I'm a member of the National Corvette Restorer Society, and I drive it to the meetings, and we drive it to the shows when we have shows. And I do drive it occasionally. I'll drive it to Mesquite, or I'll drive it to Boulder City or someplace like that. One thing you have to realize with the older Corvettes, 1, they don't have air conditioning. 2, they don't have power steering, they don't have power brakes, so they're not the easiest car in the world to drive, especially not in hot weather. Hot weather, they're a little uncomfortable. We have a chapter, it's a national organization. It's a group of people that are just kind of Corvette nuts. And what we try and do is we try and preserve Corvettes by restoring the Corvettes to either original or keeping them original if we have them original. We have about 40 members in our local chapter. Nationwide, actually it's a worldwide organization that's available. They put out a monthly newsletter, which is a pretty slick magazine. And then they put that out every other month, and they put out every month they put out a want ads type book, which has all the parts that people have for sale and all the companies that will do work on Corvettes for you. So it turns out to be a big help when you're restoring a car. They also have a number of guides on this Corvette. Like the guide for this particular Corvette is about that thick. It's about 700 pages, but it steps through everything on the car of what the car looked like when it came from the factory. And that's the push of NCRS, is they want the Corvettes not to be real shiny like this, not to be completely restored like this, but to be more like they originally came from the factory. And you know, most people don't realize it, but original Corvettes, they didn't spend a whole lot of time building them. They just kind of put them together and they did what was easy, and that's the way the cars looked when they came from the factory. They had a lot of overspray, they had panels that weren't even painted on them, and they were rough. But that's what we're looking for, is we're looking for making a car as close to what it looked like when it came off the showroom floor as we possibly can. It's a very nice looking car. I'm not sure. I haven't driven one yet. I've just looked at the one they had out at Findlay, and it's a pretty car. It doesn't seem to be real practical because there's no place to put anything in it. I mean, you've got the very small luggage space, so it's not a touring car like the C7s were. But it supposedly handles real well, and it supposedly is a very nice car to drive. I don't know. I'll hold my judgment until I actually get a chance to drive one. Right, come on out to the car show on Saturday. It's 7 to 10 on Saturday morning, where BJ's restaurant is on Eastern.